Hey everyone, Dave Greco here. Welcome back to the channel. So what we have here is our portfolio review series. So what these are is portfolio reviews that we're starting to do on Monday nights on my Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/DaveGrecoArt. And to get one of these reviews, all you have to do is save up 15,000 points in the channel and redeem them on Monday night. It's first come, first serve. It's usually about 8 or 10 portfolios. And I think it's fantastic for everyone to see, even if you don't have your portfolio picked. There's so much to learn. I think we're going to talk about color and composition and how to improve your work and things that I see kind of off the bat that you might be able to touch up and bring it to another level. I know how hard it is to have your work looked at and get commentary on to help you improve. And I'm learning myself on how to better give feedback. So this is a process for me as well. Let's hop on into it, and thank you so much. Yeah, so what I call your name for the review, just post a link to your portfolio in chat. We'll open it up and we'll check it out. So Sparrow, you are up first, my friend. No one wants ASMR reviews. And Sparrow, we've looked at your work before, haven't we? We have. I thought so. You have accumulated quite the points then. All right, so we'll bring up their portfolio for everyone to check out as well. All right, yeah, I remember we had actually talked about this piece right here. I don't know if you ever went back and did some tweaks to it. So let's take a look here. I think one of the biggest things that I'm seeing, and this is something we'll talk about quite a bit with all these, is trying to incorporate some color and like depth into your shadows, right? I think we talked about that with this piece right here, right? And I think we can still do the same thing. I think you have some really nice things, and you're actually limiting on your rim light, which is really good. All right, Tommy, let me get you down. But actually, anatomy-wise and proportion-wise, these are actually looking pretty good. Oh, hello. Yeah, and so let's see here. I think we can start incorporating a bunch of things in, and this is very important, I think, for a lot of people. And this is probably another good example. It's just really kind of it's always going to come back to anatomy and nailing down that anatomy. You do have some tough areas right here. This works. I think most people for reviews, if you do have like an art station or something where we can bring up like bigger pieces, it might work a little bit better. I definitely take a look at anatomy, especially you want to look at like the distance between things. Those are some things that stand out. Say like the distance between her elbow and her wrist is really short right here, right? And so you always want to take a look at that. And then really, I encourage this more and more is like shoot some reference if you need to. Super easy. It is a tough angle, right? But like say if I was going to do a piece like that, I know it's a tough angle. I don't think you're ever too good to just like stop and be like, you know, take this and just be like, snap some photos and be like, how does this work? What's going to look the best? Like, I know I want to do this kind of hand angle. What can I do? And how can I make the hand interesting? Right? Like, hit up that reference. We have phones. It's so easy for us to take reference. Like them sweats right there. It does look like her butt's kind of floating off the ground a little bit too. I would take a look at that. I think the colors are starting to work pretty good. I would take a look at these kind of shadow shapes right here. And I think the background sky might be getting a little muddy. I think one thing you have to think about was, and this is something that I think about when doing skies a lot, is how much light is coming from the sky, right? It should feel like it's emanating light. And so how is that affecting her? And, you know, it's really looking at, you could get some more kind of, I also think some, a little bit more kind of like smooth blending. You guys want to do some figure drawing off that? A little bit more blending, I think, in the skin. I think one thing, I noticed that a little bit more with these is the skin is looking like a little, it can look a little patchy if you don't really get that going right. But it looks like you're getting a little bit more reds into the skin, which is good. I think we talked about that before. Like right here, I think you could get a little bit more of that into her skin tone as well, especially the lips. Be careful with any type of like blue light or anything on there. You start to get like blue lips, the person usually kind of looks dead, right? Those kind of like pale lips. No, I think it's good. You usually want a little pop of color. You think about if you look at someone's face, how much more color is coming from their lips, right? But I think you actually have some nicer lighting going on. I just be careful. I would look at how when you're doing a piece, it's all about like recognizing what's working and what you need to fix. I would think about the distance. It's hard to see in my face right here because the lighting is kind of just like coming from the monitors. The distance, I always think about like from your chin right here and how that goes back into your neck, and make sure it feels like the appropriate depth is happening from the front all the way to the back. And that's something that's missing a little bit. Her face is a little flat and it looks like it's only like half an inch from the neck, right? Yeah, we're turning Monday nights into portfolio review nights. You just have to redeem 15K points. But looking solid though. I like, was this based off a screenshot to do like a study from? I think it's solid. I think one thing you could do also, and we probably talked about this before, is incorporating some kind of like secondary colors. Like you have like his shirt is brown, and so the highlights are like a little bit lighter brown, and the shadows are a little bit darker brown. Like what other kind of subtle colors can you have happening in the stream? I mean, in the shirt, in the stream. You know, what are like a lot of the subtle things that are coming, and sometimes that's tough, right? When you're doing a piece based off a show or anything like that, because usually you're looking at something that's already been like color graded and done a certain way, so you might be working at a disadvantage when it comes to that. Okay, Alan, I got you down. But those are bigger things, dude. You're already, I think, making big progress. We talked about this one before. We were talking about anatomy with her neck and everything. But I'm already seeing gains from your last piece. I think this piece is even looking stronger. These are hard. Doing any hand facing you like this is difficult. Yo, Destiny, thank you for the T1 sub. Welcome on in. And yeah, so I think that is looking better. I would be careful about these like really grayish areas that happen in the skin though. Right? And look at a lot of reference and kind of like what happens when you have skin that's more in shadow. Try to avoid it getting so gray, right? Accent anatomy study is just going to take a very long time. I mean, there's actually like, you could do Croquis Cafe. They have like figure drawing that you can do online. Professor, I think that's what you should focus on next. Is your how you're treating your skin. The darker values in your skin, that's almost like an assignment for you right there. Next piece, really think about what colors exist in the shadow shapes of skin and the highlight areas and how light is affecting it. Even just do some studies, just do like face studies, and just like, that's when you guys have to break down your work and be like, what do I need to work on? Let me just focus on that. Do studies. Maybe I just do like 40 heads. You don't have to do full illustrations. Like, you need to tackle this thing. It's holding your other work back. Boom, just hit that up. Yeah, there's so much anatomy stuff. Once you guys can get back out into the world, if you can find any type of figure drawing class at like a community college or a local group, it's amazing. I can't wait to actually start hitting that stuff up again. All right, Coach Sweet, you are up. And thank you so much for sharing your work with us. Also, engineer, I got you too. Let me get you down, dude. Let me get you down. We may do some paint overs on some of these too. Like usually if I'm trying to illustrate a point, we may do a couple of paint overs. Yo, what's up, Ray? right, Straight Up Night, we got you in the mix. We are doing portfolio reviews. People can redeem points in the chat that they save up for reviews. Then we're just like a review night. Yeah, and even if you don't have your own pieces or portfolio reviewed, I think it's good just to see other people's work, and maybe you can take in some of these kind of ideas and bring it into your own work, because the only way you really grow is being able to identify your own work, what is not working, and that's most of the time. Even it's like not even like what's the solution to fix it, but if you can see and identify it. The Lord of Pop Colors. I should put like 5 pop colors on. Is that Coach Sweet? Oh yeah. May I go after this next one? I'm just putting a thing. Oh yeah. Okay, we can do it next. All right. Ivo Campello. Yeah, you just need to be able to identify it. At least that's such a big step. Is being able to identify what's not working, because that's when you know you've gotten better too, right? Is when you can look back at old work and you're like, oh man, that's super jacked up, right? But you didn't see it at the time. It's because you can identify now. Yo, Ivo Campello, awesome. Very cool work. Let's pop your work over here. Thank you for sharing.
This guy is majorly dreamy.
Yo, official Harry Potter. You mad wizard, you. Thank you so much. Welcome to the channel. Yeah, these are cool, man. So you're doing some Hearthstone practice stuff. I like it, man. I like it. I can definitely give you some pointers as far as like it's almost kind of like what my lessons have been as far as creating Hearthstone art so far, and kind of what works and what they're looking for, and kind of like what they smash over my face, right? I like the colors in this one a lot. This one seems like the strongest one so far. Definitely nice contrast though. All right, let's go over some of these beginning ones, right? And this one is a good example too. One thing you guys want to think about, especially when you're doing HS work, is right now is how much you push the background from your foreground character is super important. And they are super big on like three kind of planes that exist within your piece: your foreground character, a little bit of detail behind, and then a straight background, and then high contrast around the character to make the character insanely pop. Because, you know, it's super big on like you're looking at this really small and it super has to read, right? This one's good. You have like a lot more kind of like stylization going on in it, which is nice. So like, let's see here. Let's go back to some of these other ones. Like you actually have those stages kind of happening in this background, which I think can work pretty good. One thing you might want to figure out is when you have some of this backlight happening here, it'd be nice to get like a little bit more contrast or something happening to really kind of pull that focus in around that character right there. I think right now also the shapes of the background, I don't know if it's really reinforcing the kind of movement of the foreground character. You know, it's such like a symmetrical kind of shape. And especially these ones right behind, like they're so sharp too. Like you really want to push those into the background, you know, use some like more wild brush strokes and kind of like just push it back. I know looking at a lot of Hearthstone art, you can kind of get like a lot of different ideas about stuff. Can demo by what part, Josh? Dude, backgrounds are tough. Oh, you did do some different ones. Yeah, and it's like I think this one works better, but you could figure out something that kind of wraps and meets with the form and kind of like twists around with it so it kind of reads better. I'm trying to think. You actually have some stuff that's usually their kind of tenets as far as like they like nice kind of dark edges that feels like the form's always kind of coming forward. So you have a lot of that going on. I think you could probably push some more kind of saturated areas into focus in it. You know, we could do like Let me see here. We could do something quick. Let me just Pikachu you guys real quick. Okay, we're good. Like, I always wonder, like, so when you're thinking about a piece, like, what is the most important part of the piece for you, right? The middle one's not the final. These are just things to, like, just take into consideration, right? You know, if it's the final or not. Is, like, I always think about, like, this part right here, right? Dude, my mouse is being crazy on me. And how much you might be able to take part of that and you're starting to get that nice. I like it when you're bringing the highlights up with going more saturated. That's pretty nice. But I think, like, what you could do, and that's something, is that how much further you can keep pushing your work, especially saturation, and how much you want it to work. And, like, you want these pieces to, like, really pop. You know, you can't, especially with Hearthstone stuff, you just can't be subtle about it. And how all this stuff, like, is there shadows overlaying on the character? And then I just think you can really bring up these foreground parts, like the light that would be hitting here. You know, you want to kind of, like, blend that out. And I think it's super important to, like, not only that, when you're doing this, like, really dive in. Yeah. Now we use overlay. I don't actually personally like color dodge. I feel like it gets a little too messy. But you really spend that time and go in and clean up all this other stuff too. And really dive into the nitty gritty. Right? But I think these are strong pieces. But one thing I would also look at too is really feeling like things, like, go back into space, right? Like, if this shoulder kind of pushes back and how that feels. And even on some of this background stuff, you're talking about pushing it back. Like, sometimes you can be careful with the airbrush shape, but, like, I mean, you can start to just kind of bleed it out a little bit back here, you know, just so it just falls back into space. Like, you just don't want to be super distracting. You know, you don't want to just, like, kind of blur it all out. And then you would come back and kind of cut in and do all this stuff. One thing I would also do, and this is for anyone that is looking to dive into this, is really look at a lot, and you're starting to do some of it too here, is really looking to a lot of how Blizzard artists handle their gold treatments. Like, it's very different than, say, like, how Riot artists handle their gold treatments. So, like, let's see here. And I always think it's pretty useful. Let me find a good one. Raphael has some really good examples that we can go off here, right? Which are really good examples of how they're using it. And don't be afraid to get more kind of, like, saturated with your colors, and, like, how this kind of bends around. Like, you have these highlights now going kind of, like, to a white, but you can get, like, a lot more deeper with your yellows and your golds, and then you kind of you can have, like, these rich golden colors, like, in these kind of, like, bounce light areas in here. I think it's super important. Yeah, I think when you think about, like, the splash art though, but, like, that's done by, like, a team of artists. And I would dive in. I like something like this too. I'm just thinking about something that they may send me feedback back on. It's like they would probably, like, really take a look at even the anatomy of an undead character, how his neck is working into his back and spinal column. These shapes right here, this hand probably needs more work on kind of what is happening in the hand. So there is some, like, smallish anatomy stuff, but super important. They'll ping you on it. Yeah, you have to like one thing, and that's I'm excited to show some of that off is just how much it's showed me to push my colors when doing work for them, because like I'm deep into saturation levels. It gets pretty wild. But that's bad. I mean, you have some pretty awesome work. Like it's the same thing. I would just always make sure they feel like the character is really kind of pushing off. Something like this, they would want like a full rendered flow of the hair. They wouldn't want half of it in these dark shapes right here. You know, they want that full rendered motion of it, you know. It's like taking those extra steps to really dive in. I think I get stuck on a lot of that stuff too. MTG cards are just totally different. Totally different. When I deal with art directors at MTG, it's completely different. But yeah, very cool. I figured this work's probably newer than this stuff at the bottom. You have some like kind of like nicer rendering choices up here. That's what it seems like. Like those other ones you did up top seem okay. I was like, wait a second. Yeah, and stuff like this, like definitely just go back to anatomy, right? There's a lot of tough things you have going on, but I would definitely make sure your like muscle structures are really solid. You know, it's tough when you're going like this with this ripped for a person, but you could dive in and really kind of get those down because it's just going to stand out. That's just the biggest thing for everybody to take in is that like if your anatomy is really not like 95% there, any recruiter or art director is going to flip to the next portfolio. It's such a major thing. But very cool work, man. Very cool work. Like I said, I think you have awesome solid work anyway. But I think it's just little things. I think just finding the form better, really just dive into some of the little things. Those little details to make it pop. Having bad anatomy is your style choice. I've heard people say that before. I've heard people that say, you know, they don't want to draw hands. That's just their style, is they don't put hands in their pieces. I was like, give me a break. But very cool. Hopefully some of that stuff helps. I mean, I know that one is tough. I think you had some pretty awesome work, but it was just like some real kind of subtle stuff to kind of check out. I think you could push the piece a little bit further. Okay, we do have Coach Sweet if you are ready. If you're not, we can go on to the next. What helps me the most? I mean, I probably make more. I mean, depends on how like you can, you know, support up to I think $10 on Patreon. I think a sub on here I get $2.50. So whichever one you want, whichever one you like. Is in no way a cohesive portfolio. That's fine. Just a mess of things I made. The one called Songbird is the most recent one. Okay, very cool. Thank you for sharing with us. Which one is, oh, say Songbird. I like this. It looks like you're getting a little bit, just from what I see from the thumbnails, it looks like you're getting a little bit more confident with your color, willing to push it a little bit further. I like that. I like seeing all this stuff though. You have some like sketches, which is pretty cool. You know, some people always say like they don't know where to start with their art, but I think just sketching, just start kind of like loosely sketching, right? So right now it looks like you're kind of working like mostly in line drawing, right? Doing some like flat colors behind it. I think that's a great place to start. And what I'm actually seeing from this is you have like a nice clean line drawing and you're doing more kind of like flat colors underneath it and then working up your shadow areas and your light areas. I think is pretty smart. Because sometimes some people, they try to get real brushy with it. And then they might get a little lost when they're starting out. And you kind of get these kind of like little muddy areas and you're not really sure how to figure out the form and the color. You know, figuring out how color works and everything takes a long time. And a lot to figure out. And so I wouldn't even worry about like Because definitely it seems like earlier stages of you kind of finding everything. Like I wouldn't worry about like composition or anything that goes into like kind of like a deeper part of illustration, right? And even right now, you actually have some pretty good like base anatomy going on. Like proportions are actually looking pretty close. You could definitely figure out some stuff on like how the back goes, curves around into the kind of this whole butt area, right? And then like where her shoulders are. So I mean, the biggest thing that you can do is really just keep diving into studies and more anatomy. And it looks like you're already doing that. This hand's looking pretty good. I think there's some other stuff up here that could be tweaked. And so like it's the little things that you guys and everyone will start learning as you dig into more anatomy is all these kind of like comparisons to things that like once you start doing this more, you'll look back at this and you'll see it more and more like how far your eyebrows go onto your face. Like you look at mine and kind of like how far back they usually go back on a person compared to where your eye is, right? And how this shape is in here. And it's these little things you'll kind of remember as you go. You'll notice that like when you come back, you're like, whoa, I had the eyebrows kind of come all the way back and they look like they're going back to like, all the way halfway back here, right? Thanks, Raleigh. Sneely, I have not actually. But I like this looseness that you have going on. It's hard to critique right now because I think you have what looks like the kind of beginning stages of just starting to explore and just draw, right? Which I think is pretty exciting. Like, I think these flat colors is pretty nice at first. I would, if you want, you could even just do like a gradiented like background, just like a little bit of gray into white or something simple. I wouldn't worry too much about this background stuff right now. I think it might be taking away from some of these pieces a little bit. Like this one is kind of, you can maybe just do some more kind of general colors back here, right? I think we're going to do these every Monday for a while, Paizen, depending how it goes. Right? And then, but when you're doing it, I think this is something for everybody too, is when you're starting to do pieces and learn anatomy and start studying more, is try to take it like a piece at a time, like a part of the body at a time, right? I mean, I can only give tips for like what I do is that like dive in, be like, let's figure out some noses tonight. Yo, Steele, thank you for the 34. I appreciate it. And how can we get better at drawing noses? It sounds boring, but it's really not that boring. Or if like you're doing another face, let's like really stop and be like, okay, this is the folds in the ear. How are they doing? Why are they doing it like this? I'm telling you, you're going to carry that knowledge for every piece going forward, but you just have to stop and thinking about that stuff. It's super, super important to stop and think about it. And so like, a lot of artists are always like, oh yeah, you want to draw and paint all the time, but you have to draw and paint with a purpose, right? And you have to feel like you're trying to dive in and push and learn with every piece that you do. You don't want to just spin your wheels without like, you're not picking up things from piece to piece. Yeah, you guys can definitely check out Quick Poses. That sounds awesome. But I think you have an awesome kind of base going right now. Very, very cool. Like I said, I think you're getting a little bit more bold. You're getting a little more confident with your color on this one. When you're just starting, everything is kind of bad. What's a good place to start? I mean, for me, I like doing characters, so I would start at the face, right? Do some portraits. Do some studies off people you see on Pinterest. Just look at some stuff. Do some self portraits. I used to do a ton of self portraits. Just get a little mirror, because then you're still kind of drawing from life too, which is kind of nice. And just kind of draw, just try and maybe, sketch your face, do some like little things like that. Draw yourself sounds horrifying. You can find some people online to draw if you want, right? What's up, Mina? How does one keep themselves from getting discouraged? That's one for a different person. I get discouraged too. I get really down on myself. I get hard on myself. I hit slumps with my own art. It's tough. All right, Mouse, let me get you on the list here. It's tough. Is it worth learning to draw realistic? I'm planning on making manga. Yeah, I think you should learn what the rules are before you decide to break them. I think if you start drawing and you're only mimicking the way manga and anime artists create people, I think you put yourself in a bad starting position because a lot of their anatomy doesn't make any sense, especially when it comes to noses or like how a face looks in profile and a lot of stuff like that. I think it's going to come out way better when you're making those choices deliberately to look a certain way because you know how it should be and how much you can push it and tweak it. So if you can, I would try to learn how this stuff works properly. You get into like manga and stuff. Most people don't even have like nostrils, right? So yeah. So I mean, that would definitely be my advice for that. I would always learn the rules before you want to break them. I learned that lesson myself when I was in school. I was trying to do a bunch of comic book stuff, and I wanted to like reimagine how a page is presented, and every page should be like its own piece, but then little pieces that exist within it to make a bigger piece. And I didn't know how to create a comic in the first place. I didn't know how to tell a story in the first place. So I was trying to break all those rules before I even knew how they worked, and it was total shit. That's true, Straight Night. How do you keep pushing yourself, especially when learning? I put myself on a schedule. When we started streaming, it was Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday night. I had to stream, and I had to stream. I had to push my work. And I have a choice. I couldn't play games on those nights. I committed to a schedule. And I made myself push on those nights. You need to learn how and why to break the rules in school. Absolutely. Right? You have to understand like why is any type of anime or manga artist, why are they doing this a certain way? Why did they change this initially to look a certain way? And telling you it's going to come across in your work. Because you need that confidence in your work too. That confidence in the line and the rendering. Yeah, a lot of self-discipline for sure. Because their editor, what, these pages a week, I mean, it's not really an answer. But very cool work. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm glad you got those up on ArtStation. I think it's looking awesome. Yo, what's up, Dingus? All right, we have Shirotada. Advice on getting out of an art block. For me, that's a tough one because I have to create art automatically all the time anyway. I can't create work based on inspiration. I have a process for creating work, and I just have to sit down and do it. Awesome. All right, Marcelo. All right, very cool, very cool. All right, one thing I think we can take a look at, and this gets tough with Hearthstone work too, right? And I think this comes into color harmony, right? You have a lot of saturated color. It's hard to read on a focal point. Like you need those kind of muted, desaturated areas, and then that's what's going to make the color super pop, right? You're hitting it all over. And so I think we need to slow down and find a focal point for a lot of these pieces, right? And so, okay, let's go back to the beginning here. I think let's find some that are like pretty good. Well, I got a lot of stuff here. One thing you always do, and guys, and this is an example, not example, but definitely a lesson, is when you are ready to present a portfolio. I mean, it's fine here for sure. You guys can send me whatever you want. But when you are applying to a studio or a client or anything, is that you're always judged on your worst piece. A studio always wants consistency. They want to make sure they want to know what they're going to get when they slide you into the pipeline. And so it's super important to really go through. And it's like, we get a lot of portfolios. People be like, oh, sorry, that was in there. But that's like 4 years old. Then that's part of it. This is part of the whole process. Then it's time to axe that out. If you have to explain away a piece, then it probably should not be in a portfolio. I'm not saying any of these are. It's just something to think of. Dude, this is awesome, actually. I love this type of work. I love pixel art. I wish I was good at it. That's actually very cool. This actually looks cool right here. I like that. Okay. So one thing I would look at is like, I would really think about the readability of your piece. These might be more kind of like high-end things to think about when you're tackling your piece, is how it reads, right? Like, it's hard to tell the difference between his foreground hand and his body and his background hand. It all kind of exists in the same plane, right? And you also want to really look at like getting some like hard contrast in there. Like, what are darker areas of the face and shadows underneath everything, and kind of where that would be, and how can you figure out ways to make that hand look closer, right? And we probably might have to keep it at 10. Because I can't go like all night. I can only do like a couple hours. We're gonna do this every Monday, guys. And so I would definitely think about that. Like, you have higher contrast areas with these trees behind them instead of the foreground character. Remember, when you're thinking about value, is high contrast is gonna read really, really fast. I mean, it's what you're gonna like read and pop the most, right? And so that's something. So like, if you really want this area right here, you really want to get that contrast. You want to get that form built up. That's going to be super important. But yeah, you just have like a lot of saturation kind of happening all over the place. And I think you really want to focus the viewer's eye, right? That's going to be something pretty major. Yeah, it's really kind of diving in, because I don't know what is happening in all this part right here. I think the pose and the idea is cool. I think it's figuring out kind of read it. That wasn't the next one. Oh, it was. And I think I would think about subtleties of color that exist in like any certain area. And this is something we'll go across in a bunch of different pieces as well. So like, he's got green skin, right? And so you kind of just have like, and you kind of have some oranges going. I mean, you have the blue from the light going underneath, but it's just like, it's kind of straight green skin everywhere. Is there subtleties of like, kind of like a little bit of reds in his hands, or, I think you can push that a little bit. But I would really dive in and I think it's getting that contrast back out. Because you want the central character to really pop off the background as well. I think the shape design up here is looking good. But I think you're having the same issue as you did with the first piece, is if this part in the front should feel like it's a little bit closer to you, he's pushed back, and then the background should be pushed back even more. That kind of depth of space, just really think about it, is going to be super, super important. And so at the same time, just be super wary. And it's tough with like Hearthstone looking art too, because some artists do it a lot and it works. Is just be careful with your rim lights. It can really kind of flatten parts of it out. I would think more of what is a central light to the piece. Like something in the foreground here that's really bringing his whole body and face outward. And then you could think about some secondary lights from down here. Yeah, so one thing you could definitely do, that's true. So one really great example is if you're going to color real fast, like pop your piece in black and white and really take a look at it and figure out like, is this reading at all? Is parts of it disappearing? So if you look at this piece and you're like, whoa, this pillow totally disappears into his robes value wise, that's a problem. That's something you need to address and to fix, right? And so these are little things that I look at when I'm doing a piece too. And it's all these little like cross-check comparisons. They're like, all right, so I want the face to pop out, right? So maybe the value of the bottom of the face to his chin to his shirt underneath, maybe that's getting pretty close. What are some things we can do to tweak that and change that? Do I darken this robe up down here? Is it not getting as much light? We could do like, this is why I do spend some time in the black and white at first. I think it does help. I think sometimes you have to change your lighting scenario so a piece just ends up reading better. Really dive in here. Let's push all this back, right? Let's not worry about all these secondary lights down below. They're really not going to affect him as much as you think they are. Like, let's keep it simple on how you're going to want to read. And then honestly, let's do like a base light on the character himself and figure out like the actual forms of his nose and how the light's hitting here. And then really sculpting it all out. The light's going to hit the top of his cheekbones and really kind of figure that all out and get that contrast going. And don't neglect other details too that like dive into, really figure out like, I think this is what happens sometimes too, is there's sometimes people will kind of stop themselves or they don't think to keep going mentally. Is that like, oh, they're finding a reference, like I found a good nose or the face shape. But then sometimes it feels like, oh, but they stopped with the teeth. Right? They're like, I kind of have this like way I used to draw teeth and I just do this kind of thing, right? And it's like, how do we stop? And I'll do that too. I'm like, I'll stop, like, man, let's get some like, we got a goblin here. Goblin gotta have cool teeth, right? And so like, make yourself stop and figure that out. Like, if you're seeing the bottom row of his teeth and how they're all placed in here, and who knows what's could be happening, but like just kind of stop and to think about that stuff and what could be going on back there and how the shadows are affecting inside his mouth. You can just do a lot. I know Marlo is completely chilling right now. So like I said, I think one of your biggest steps and biggest advice I could say for your work is I spend a little bit more time in the black and white. Make sure everything is reading in the black and white. The values are reading, and you're telling the story that you want and it's reading properly. I think that's the first step. And then you can start figuring out like, okay, it's all reading right, it's perfect. And then the same deal, like here, once you start getting this wand and everything back in here, it's really going to pop off it. And then you might be able to come back and, figure out kind of some of these like highlight parts that are going to pop from that color, right? And then you can figure that out. But I think getting the high contrast readability, I think it's gonna do awesome stuff for your work. And Marlo's crazy. So I hope that helped. Thank you so much for sharing your work. I appreciate it. It's important to pop out the whole character from the BG. You would probably want a lot of the character popped out. At least to have it like pretty readable. And you can look at that when you look at like a lot of Hearthstone stuff, It doesn't, you don't always need like super high contrast, but they're just really big on you look at some work like this, I just think a lot of Raphael's work is a really great example of that kind of readability. You can not only like the high contrast, maybe it's also complementary colors like this one that's making it work so well, and so it's going to read. But they do a lot of the readability in the thumbnail stage. These black and white thumbnails is the same way that I kind of send mine in, and making sure that that high contrast and readability is happening just in these little black and whites, because that's solving a lot of your problems right from the beginning. Marlo, you are freaking me out, dude. All right, what's up in the mix? You're up, my friend. Yeah, dungeon. I think you have to just learn what kind of works best for you, right? Taldarin, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, Shirotada. Then think about Rimlight. That's true. And you can use Rimlight, especially with the Hearthstone stuff, to really kind of make things pop. You just have to be careful. Danny, we might be flooding. We have 10 reviews we're doing, but Danny, we're gonna be doing these I think every Monday for going forward. So, God, this monitor's bright. But after like 10, my brain might fall apart. Since I'm pretty tired anyway. It's been a long day. So I'm trying to keep it going for y'all. All right. So you just oh, there's a bunch of pieces down here. Okay. So what are you looking to do with your portfolio? I think that's a good question for us to tackle as well. These are cool. This is a crazy font size down here. I don't think it's my computer, is it? Oh, it was. Okay. I think it was, I had it like lower down for some reason. Because you definitely have like it's kind of those portfolios. It looks like you're just exploring a lot of different things, right? I guess it's important to know kind of like what you want to shoot for and what you want to represent in your folder. I mean, in your portfolio. Like these are cool pastel drawings, right? This one has some nice color in it. Into industrial design. That's something I'm not like super familiar with when it comes to industrial design. I like these though. This stuff right here, I think if you're looking for like to get into school or anything portfolio wise, I think seeing these base sketches with like a pencil, it shows like a lot of these kind of like hard edge things. I think right away looking at these things are crazy strong. More of this right here. More of these. I wish you'd have them facing the right way in your portfolio too. Like this one looks like it's sideways. Because I think you have a lot of like cool technical stuff going. I know, Marlo, I can't believe it right now. So I guess that's the biggest thing I can say portfolio wise, because I like these. I think these are cool sketches. I feel like this is the type of drawings a lot of us did when we were younger. We're doing like pencil sketches based on photos. sorry for the Marlo ASMR. And I think they're cool to do. I think they probably only go so far as a portfolio goes. I can't concentrate though. And I think those technical drawings down below are stronger than these pieces. I think these are pretty cool. This helmet is actually rendered pretty well. It's nice and clean, which I like. Now he's clawing something up in revenge on me. And the environment piece is cool too, but honestly, if you had a portfolio of a lot of this stuff, I don't know if you're looking to get into like more schooling or if you're looking for a job. I'm really not sure about like career wise what that kind of turns into and what you need, but I think this stuff is super strong. Like this has always been a weak point for me, and these are super badass. I don't know if you like have more enjoyment doing these two. This looks like more like your comfort zone. I think you should embrace that. And I think what things that people should try to avoid in a lot of their portfolios, and I know it's a lot of extra work, is things that look like student work. And I'm not saying like, some of these are, but things that look like they were like classroom assignments, stuff like that, where it seems so random and it looks like, oh, it was just a piece I was doing with, I was I never used this before, this medium, right? And so that's just like more work. And so I think that's another thing you need in your portfolio is just like start jamming out some work. You know, start doing way more of those technical drawings. Fill a sketchbook. You know, make it the next couple months, buy a new sketchbook and just jam the shit out of that thing. And I think you're gonna come up with some really awesome stuff. This is cool, man. It's really cool to see your guys' work. You know, so many of you in chat, and I feel like so many people have not really seen their work before. It's cool to see everybody's tastes and designs and what they like. That's awesome, man. They are. I wish I spent more time in my sketchbooks. For sure. Yo, Tommy, you're up, dude. You're up. But thanks for sharing. Very awesome. Honestly, I just want to see more. Yeah, very, very cool. Thank you so much. I know it takes a lot to show to everybody, having so many eyes on it. I know it can be can feel intimidating too. Yeah, I used to always wish I could do like technical drawing like that. I love that stuff. I've just never been like that kind of draftsman, right? All right, Tommy, that's cool. No worries. That's all right. I mean, one portrait's good. Like some of the like the Hearthstone looking art is a little bit tough for me to critique since I'm still kind of in the process and figuring out a lot of it for myself and what works and what doesn't. Yeah, what's up in the mix? Absolutely. Thank you again. That's awesome. That's super awesome. All right. You actually have some cool stuff going here. I lost it. Wait a second. Where'd you go? There it is. All right. Very cool. There's actually some pretty wild proportions happening on here, but it's kind of cool in a way. You actually have some really interesting rendering going on. One thing I would check out is some like smaller things within the anatomy, right? Cody, well, thank you. Yeah, what's up, Mike? Is really just like some things that pop out to me is the idea of like the muscles that happen in the neck and the shapes that happen and how it all affects, right? Like one thing you always want to avoid neck wise is if it's like a straight tube, if it feels like a tube coming up, right? But I like the kind of like soft lighting you have. And it's actually really nice that you're going into kind of more saturated kind of golds and stuff right here instead of going towards white, right? She's not finished. Oh, okay. Well, either way, it's pretty cool. Like I mean, there's actually, like I'm saying, there's actually some like stylization happening. Like it feels so like centered and the shoulders are kind of like so straight out. At first, it feels like alarming, but it's actually kind of nice. I mean, she has like a serious full head of hair. I think we're full with reviews tonight, but this is something we're starting to do on the channel, I think, every Monday night. You actually are having some good, where things are lining up is actually working out pretty well. Especially you think about like the inner part of the eye lining up to the nostrils. You know, you might be able to bring the nostrils out a tiny bit. I think some parts under here, I think this is probably catching like too much light underneath. And then I think what we could do is I would try to figure out a little bit more kind of balanced light happening. I think it's starting to happen here, but I think you could start to lighten this up and get a little bit more subtle with how much of that shadow is happening on this side. You know, a little bit more kind of like the pinks coming through just a little bit, right? All right, Mike, have a good night. Yeah, I think the hair is cool. If I were you, I would want to bring the hair, like it stops right on the edge of the piece. Like, yeah, I would either bring the hair way up or have it go off the canvas. It makes it look like her hair is sitting on the frame of the piece. Like it's in like tangent, like the danger zone. Right. And one thing also, I would definitely take a look at some of your contrast. So like you have such dark pupils, right? Yeah, everyone's so talented in here. It's crazy. Everyone's doing such awesome work. Trust me, I'm trying to nitpick these because I know people want advice. Me patting people on the back is usually not what they're looking for. So I'm having to dig in here. Yeah, night. Our stations are a great place for a portfolio.
Come on, you pasty-faced, two-timing
Zach
niggas,
Tunes,
with
thank you
your
for the
history!
raid. Welcome on in. Appreciate it. We're just doing some portfolio reviews tonight. But I would definitely look at getting some of that kind of like darker areas happening within the ear. Maybe some deep reds. Getting that kind of a nice contrast in some of these folds that'll look nice. Yo, Zach Tunes, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hope you had an awesome stream. And then you might be able to get, look at, you have some of these actually like a little more orange and pinks happening in the ear. You know, I think you can bring in a little bit more of those warm tones into her cheeks, into her nose. I think it'd be nice to start real slow, real subtle, and kind of build that up, right? Yeah, so many awesome artists in here tonight. Seriously, you guys are crazy. And yeah, like I definitely, like I was saying before, I would flesh out. I know you said you're still working on the neck, but working on the shapes and what's happening with the musculature there, especially with her collarbone and clavicle and everything that's happening, kind of right that you'll be able to see right here. It's gonna be super important. I give healthy advice. Thanks. I'm working on trying to give advice. It's not easy for me to critique pieces, but I do try. I do try my best. But I think it's a pretty solid. Are you using any reference as far as the lighting is concerned, or are you kind of just going with it? Because I think you actually have some nice soft lighting and shadows here. And I think it's actually in a cool place. Also, I would make sure you seem always tired. I'm exhausted all the time. I'm just getting old. That's why. You get tired as you get older. Great now, sleep layer. Welcome on in. I would also look at just make sure that your shadow areas feel like they kind of exist in the same kind of area, right? And what I mean by that is, so like just make sure that its ear doesn't feel like it's too bright sitting on what hair is kind of existing in shadow, right? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Marcos, we'll see. We'll see if we'll pick it up and get better at it over time. Like I said, I'm not a very technical artist. I kind of shoot from the hip with a lot of my art, and so that's what's always made it hard for me to critique others, is that I'm just not technical. Oh, Scholar. I'm almost 40, okay. I don't want to hear about people almost 30. But dude, definitely look on those things, man. Yo, Tommy, I'd love to see this. Once you're finished rendering this thing, pop it over to me on Discord. I'd love to see it. And I can throw you another round of feedback after if you want. But like I said, I love the colors you have going on in the hair too, as far as the highlights are working. You can, but we're full up on reviews for tonight though. Tommy, you're awesome. Thank you so much, dude. I hope the hell, man. Honestly. Yo, Alan PV, you're up next. You're up next, Alan PV. Yo, Mr. Luxos, how are you doing? We are doing portfolio reviews tonight. We are starting doing a new thing. We do Monday night portfolio reviews. Good to see you, bud. Oh, Luxos, you didn't have to do that. Thank you so much. Welcome to it, good sir. An amazing streamer himself and content creator. Luxos is amazing. What do you think a blues dev would say to some of our stuff? Do you think you'd be capable of emulating that? I mean, most of the critiques and advice I give is a lot of the advice that Blizzard gives me when I work on stuff for them. Thank you so much. I need to reciprocate myself. I lurk in the channel a lot, especially for all the DK advice, especially since I'm maining it for the first time in this expansion. I'm trying to learn a lot. Okay, let's see. Alan PV, your portfolio is up next. Let's see what you got here. Thanks for sharing it, by the way. Oh my god, I closed it already. I think my mouse is kind of losing it tonight. Yeah, Lord Codis, I think we're just doing about 10 reviews tonight. And then we'll see how they go going forward since we're doing these on Monday nights. All right, let's go through. I like this, dude. Oh, that's cool. You're showing some process down here too. I always like seeing this stuff and seeing kind of like how you work and try to work. Yeah, we'll be doing these on Luxus, you crazy dude. Icons. You have a nice variety going on in here though. One thing you might want to tweak, these are cool. This one is like such an interesting story. Like she seems so dressed out, right? And she's just like chilling out on like a ledge. Oh, okay. I thought I went down. I thought you had done a piece, and that was like her head instead. All right. Oh, so something like this, and this is what we talk about with other R2 is really making sure to just we're tackling the anatomy, right? Anatomy is number one always. Making sure and being able to identify yourself if things feel right and look right. Is that shoulder where it needs to be? Is it the right length of the arm? Don't be afraid to shoot your own reference, right? Oh, it does look like it does look like Max's. You're right. Yeah, it was Max's. I didn't even realize that. Yeah, it was impressive. You're right. That's actually a cool version of it. But I was still like, definitely, it's always you get to think about that anatomy, right? All the time. And these are looking pretty good too. That's actually a haunting picture. This one's pretty cool. Actually, this one actually is feeling pretty sweet. I like this one a lot. I think this comes into, I think this is interesting. Like you can make this piece like super dramatic too. I think I was thinking about how you want to tackle light and how that affects the composition. Oh, also one thing, super careful about tangents. You got tangent danger zone happening with the edge of this leg right here and the tip of the blade. And so like that's like a hard stop, right? Like your eye stops completely on that, and all you do is just bring that knife out longer, make it extend over it, right? I mean, so tangents, I mean, we can do this real quick. Let's take a copy. We'll put this guy in. Yeah, so basically you're always trying to avoid tangents. Tangents can totally kill a piece, right? It's just like your eye can't process past or it makes something feel really awkward. It's like the same thing. So like if you had, let's copy this out, right? Any tangent is hitting the edge of something else. The same thing would happen if we took this knife, right? And we brought it right to the edge of the piece, right? Like when you think about composition and flow, your eye enters a piece and circles around the piece. You pick up pieces of information about it, and you come back more to like the center area. And then you still keep floating around the piece, and like a lot of tangents can stop you dead in your tracks, and it can be a real problem. And so like you wouldn't want anything like this either, right? You kind of want this constant flow, whatever it's going to be in a piece where your eyes kind of flowing around and it sticks in and stays within the piece. Yo, Mandy, good to see you, by the way. It's been a while. How are you doing? So biggest thing I would do if you were doing this, super easy fix. Take the knife and just bring it out a little bit.
Come on, you pasty-faced
Yo,
two-timing
third
maggot.
artifact.
What's
Good to
your
see you.
history?
Oh,
Thank you guys so much. We're going to take just a quick 5 seconds just to thank Third Artifact, everyone from our community coming to the stream. We're actually doing portfolio review tonight. So we're looking at a bunch of people in their community, their portfolios. We're giving feedback on it. Thank you so much. Hope you had an awesome stream, guys. Definitely check out Third Artifact. She is super awesome. And I appreciate her complete love for the Lord of the Rings trilogy and The Hobbit that I was hearing tonight. And I salute Third Artifact for such dedication. It's pretty amazing. Welcome on in. If everyone is new to the channel here, my name is Dave Greco. I've been a concept artist in the game industry for about 16 years. I am freelance now. I left the studio life about a couple months ago, and so we're freelance, and most of our work these days is we do client work, we do work for Magic the Gathering, we do work for Hearthstone, and those are kind of like my major clients right now. And then thank you for inflating your ego. No problem. And so this is something we try to do.
I think she's wicked
I remember,
cool.
thank you for the bits. When I was either in school, it was very hard for any professional to take a look at my portfolio, and it's really hard to grow your own work without that type of feedback. You can get really stuck in it. And so if I can take a little bit of time out at least once a week to look at people's work, and just give a couple little things of advice, things for them to work on, it makes a massive difference in any artist's life and what they're working on. It gives them direction, and that's super important. Why I decided to go freelance, I was just getting so much work. I was starting to do freelance while I was at a studio, and the work was just getting so heavy that I couldn't handle studio work anymore. So one big thing I would take a look at too is how you approach shadows and what's going on in here. And I think everyone still needs to find the depth in an object when you're tackling in a shadow, right? So take these, we can do a quick example right here, and you can kind of see it right here. And maybe stylistically, that's where you want to go. But for me, I love color. I think you can get more saturated and a little deeper with your color in some of these shadow areas. Like, it's tough. This area is like really dark. I'm gonna kind of paint off my preview window, and we can kind of blend that in. And I would want to start kind of giving this all life, and just make sure, even in these shadow areas, that the depth of all this is there. And I would avoid trying to go like, so you have like this brownish color, right? And I think a lot of artists, when we're starting out, is, we want to go darker with the shadow. Let's just add like darker blacks to it, right? But that's not that interesting. And then I think you can start to get more of depth into it. Guys, definitely check out Third Artifact, by the way, and her channel. She's an awesome World of Warcraft streamer, just like Luxos. They're both amazing. I feel honored to have them even in my chat tonight. And we're not really painting on our stuff tonight, but we're looking at all these awesome portfolios from the community here. But I think just even like subtle stuff, just go in and dive in. Just small stuff, and you can really start to get some color in and bring in that form out. And then it's the back and forth push that you're going to do, right? As you can start to get more light on it, everything. Me, you could cut some light across it, more shadow shapes, right? Yeah, definitely. You can sub for free with Twitch Prime. always. But you have a really solid base with your work and your painting. I think your like stuff like this, your compositions are looking good and everything too. I think you just start pushing your color and your light and your saturation. But yeah, and avoid those tangents for sure. And reference, guys, reference for your anatomy, 100%, super important. I shoot reference like a madman, like a crazy madman. But thank you so much for showing your work. Hopefully those are some things to focus on. Really cool stuff. I appreciate you sharing that. We have Engineer. You are up, my friend. Yeah, we got a bunch of Prime gamers up in here. It's so quiet with that music tonight. This is just like late night chill portfolio reviews tonight. Yeah, you guys everyone show me some really awesome work tonight. You guys have been awesome. Irish Moo, I hope so. Sometimes a lot of my feedback kind of starts like overlapping. It's a lot of the same stuff kind of over and over. Engineer, we can wait. We can hold you back one if you want. Yo, what's up, Spooky Wagons? Well, thanks for coming over with Third of Fire. I can't help but wish I did tats. Oh, I've done some tattoo designs before, but the biggest thing is find an awesome tattoo artist to do your tattoo work. They're amazing artists, and it's its own skill and its own design. And I'm not practiced as much as like a lot of people have hit me up for tattoo designs. I do not do tattoo designs for people anymore. All right, engineer. I'm now a full-time software engineer, but I'm getting back to my roots. I started as an artist 12 years ago, animator, freelance, 3D artist. Go full throttle with a critique. I can handle it. I've been streaming and uploading my videos to keep up on art. Here's your art station. Hell yeah. What is your goal? You want to increase... I think it broke off. I think we've done like 6 portfolio reviews so far. Which one sounds stressful? Oh, nice. He did a bunch of these models for it. That's pretty awesome. That's cool. This is number 7. God, we're up to 7 already. We're ripping through. You're crazy, man. I like it. Mandy, you're not wrong. Yo, Mandy, I emailed Twitch. I can't wait to tell them. I can't wait for Twitch to tell me to screw off. It happens with everybody. They're like, you're an art streamer? Leave us alone. This piece is looking cool. I like this one. I think, okay, one thing you can think about for this one, which we actually haven't talked about with a lot of pieces, is dealing with hard edges and soft edges, right? You have a lot of soft edges happening everywhere. I think you need to have a mix of both, especially with these central characters. Should look nice and crisp, right? Especially around like the top of his head and his hand. That hand should feel like it's in focus, right? I would really go around and tighten that up. And like, I think this will be a good example. Maybe this is something we can bring in. Yo, Drolly, thank you so much. Like, it's something I would do. And this is kind of why I start with a lot of line drawing. And then you can kind of paint around it after sometimes. Is even with that DG main, like you can really crisp this stuff up. And like you just, even if you go like really dark down here, right? Like let's find those hard edges. And bring this whole thing out. You know, even if like you want to get rid of a lot of these line shapes later, I think it's going to be important to figure out all these little details. I think you don't want things to feel like they're too soft, right? And too airbrushy. Like crisp these up for sure. Right, crisp it all up. And then already when we take a look at the piece, how much more that hand is in focus, right? Just by doing just some hard edges around it, right? And I don't mean give it like a line drawing. You can straight, you know, go back in, and then when you're going to render these hands out to that, you know, blend it in and smooth it out. You know, I think if you use a brush that has like a little bit more texture or something, it's all comparisons, right? Like you're looking about the edges of how this reads and all that stuff. I think that out a lot. This is a cute piece. I like it. Super crispy. My nose is itching. It's driving me crazy. But this is one of those things too. I think I see this a lot too. People try to do kind of like this more like extreme bounce light, right? It's like you have it going to like this dark green, and then you have this orange kind of hitting on the side, which is pretty intense. I think we can start a lot more basic. You could try to go like a little bit more subtle with it. Maybe it's just a little bit of a cooler light. It's almost like, so instead of like going from like a green to something that's so polar opposite with this orange, sometimes I like to just kind of twist the wheel so you're kind of like in the same realm. But like, let's just twist it up to the blue a little bit to cool it off on the side. And maybe that color we kind of just brush in, right? So we're bringing in another color. It's not straight green. And then spend the time, and we talked about this with these other pieces, is finding the form in your shadows. And I think that's important. Like some of these, like that light hitting from the side, it's not going to do like these weird rim light properties all over it. Like put this whole thing back, tuck it back into where these folds would be. And then if you wanted some extreme orange, it would probably be more like on the side plane of his face, right? And if you're going that deep with a color, it doesn't really feel like light if it's that dark. Like if there was some like crazy orange light hitting him from the side, it probably would hit this whole side or something, right? I mean, it would be like really extreme. This is the whole side of his face, right? Is this whole deal right here. And you can find more of those little parts right here. Like if it was hitting from behind the jaw, that's when you have like a really strong light back here. So that's where your orange light would be, right back here. And then you would get like these hits behind the jaw, and you might have it trickle around a little bit, right? And that's when you're really hitting those. That's behind. You kind of have this idea that's hitting parts of the side of the head, but I'm not sure where it's hitting. And that rim light only means it's like curving around the object. It's not going to be hitting all over the place, so just be careful with it. That's kind of where that light would be if you're doing that. So just be careful of that stuff. I think just try to push the form completely, even in these shadow areas. And then I would go in and you take that same color, even if you're brushing over it right here, and then go back in, go even darker, and then all right, let's figure out where all the, this one's trying to figure out where everything is, like where his neck and where the collarbone is and all that stuff. And then you can figure out some more kind of like subtle darker shapes in here. But can't wait for this work to read poetry. This is an awesome picture. I like this one. Boy, this is sad work. The single tear that came down. No, but very cool. I think just some really small stuff to look at to really push it. I think it's awesome. I like the face on it too, but really, I think the hard edges, the soft edges, take a look at that and try to just know that that's happening in your work. I think you're going to see big results. Ivo Campella, well, thank you so much. And thank you so much for sharing your work, engineer. It's looking, Straight Up Night, you're next. Alexa, welcome back. When watching Up, yeah, I can't watch Up without crying. It's impossible. I tried it again 2 nights ago. I was unsuccessful of not tearing up. I'm done. I think every time I watch it, I always forget that she can't have kids, and then it breaks me. Who did I say was next? We have Straight Up Night. I've tried to be as positive and offer some advice that they can carry through in their work going forward. It's something I definitely try to do. We blocked that part out of our mind. That's true. Mandy, how you been, by the way? I always try to catch your streams, but it's only if I'm up super late. Like I'm going to bed, like, all right, I gotta crash. It's 1 in the morning. Let me close out my computer. I'm like, oh, all right, there's Mandy. She started her stream up. I don't know how you I don't know how you do that schedule. Your schedule is crazy. Oh, sure, no, yeah, you're next. You're next. To get a sugar cookie. I like where your head's at. All right, straight up night. Thank you for sharing your work as well. The Little Knight. These are cool. Have we looked at this specific piece before? These thumbnails seem familiar. We have. Well, critiques on these two pieces. Okay, so the top one and this one. Okay, awesome. God, Instagram is so bright. So I think you're starting to get some cool stuff going, which we've talked about before. And when it comes down to environments, is getting like a foreground, middle ground, and background happening. I think that's starting to help work pretty well. One thing I would look at, and it's interesting, we're talking about hard shapes and soft shapes, is how that handles in your environment work too. I think some of this loose brushwork you have going on the ground here is awesome. I think that's working really, really well. I like it a lot, actually. But I would really think about like how hard edged some of these shadow shapes are in the tree. If to get a shadow that sharp, it was almost like it would have to be a spotlight right in front of the tree. Like if you think like something that's that far away and the light is spread out and kind of curving around it, and you have like more soft shadows, totally soften that up. And I would do like a real, go subtle with it. And one thing that's really good to do too, one of these environment pieces, is I take a lot of like that sky color, that blue, and how that's affecting the light. I would take some of those blues and bring those blues into your shadows. And you can see it too. See your shadows and the leaves up here on the right? These blues are actually feeling really good for the piece. So I would bring some of these blues into your shadows. That's happening down here. Has some warm, light, cool shadows. And then I think the same thing. So for a lot of these shapes, they get a little flat. I think because it's so hard edged, right? Yeah, def. I would bring that into the statues and the stairs as well for sure. But you always want to make sure. So even like the statue, and just when you're painting it, think about the idea that it's still going back in space, right? There's still like a front area of the statue. It should feel more forward facing, and then the side of it, how it's gonna curve around, right? And kind of like fade back a little bit as it curves back. And a lot of these, because they're so hard edged too, and how they're kind of rendered, it almost looks like a I don't know, like they're cutouts placed in different planes. You know what I'm saying? And I think the next step for you is to figure out that type of that depth. I think there's actually some shadow stuff too. I think just go more subtle with some of these shadow shapes, like this shadow of this tree back here. I would just, especially when it comes to environment, you can use a lot of these loose brushes and really kind of like just push it back and just be careful with it. But I think right here, this foreground area is working really, really nice. I love how you're getting just like more saturated with your color. These areas of pockets of light on the bottom. Perfect. I think that looks awesome. I think it's working really good. Yo, Destiny, well, thank you so much for hanging out. I appreciate it. Yeah, and that's what's awesome. You're having a really nice focal point right here, and that's great in any environment piece. Is having this nice focal area that you caught the viewer's attention. They brought them into your piece, and now that they're in your piece, what are these little things that you can trickle in around in like the middle ground and background that can make them just soak in and appreciate the piece even more? All right, let me see if I can make this one bigger. Okay, it's a little bit bigger. Well, same thing. I've talked about with other ones, I would just make sure I have some reference. I think the biggest thing is kind of like how straight her arm is, right? I think it's always good to put like a good bend into the arm, unless it's like really specific for a piece. That's like the point of the piece. It's kind of like how straight it is right here. And think about like how thin it might get as it gets into like the crease of the elbow, and then coming down into our wrist, it gets a little tube-ish. That's something I would check out. And I think this is a big thing for skin too, is how you blend. I always try to like avoid, like, skin can get like splotchy, and that's something you kind of want to avoid, right? And that's something you'll kind of learn more and more. And there's some kind of like shadowy shapes and highlights that you might want to change on the belly button. It looks like, because it makes it look like it's facing the opposite direction. One thing I would also check out too is I would change like the shape of the mountains in the background. It's following the shape of the lightsaber like too much. It's like you're in tangent zone again right here, right? And it's almost happening with this ground plane right here. Something about the background's not really like enforcing the image of Leia, right? And that's something to think about, like how can you use a background to frame a character that you're trying to focus on? How can you use the background to make that character pop? I think color-wise it's working, but that's something I would think about. And then like some of these mountains in the background are so dark. There's something kind of cool about it since it's like sunset, but I would really want her to pop and not the background. You have the highest contrast in the piece is this guy this is the highest contrast that's happening in the piece right here. This is not your focal point. You were thinking of adding some X-Wings? Dude, I don't think putting more stuff in the piece is like what the piece needs, though. I think she should be more focused, getting her down, those small things, and then like, because this shot's about her, right? So she needs that high contrast. She needs that kind of focal point. That's where you want your viewers looking to, right? And so I would really push that back. Think about the same thing you're doing with your environment work, that like there's a foreground to the environment, and it pushes right back into the horizon. Make it feel like there's like a real distance happening, right? And it gets a little flat from this ground plane into these mountains. Like these mountains almost look like they're like 10 feet away and small. It's hard to tell, right? Why? Because she's agile with it, Dirty. She can do some kickflips, all that stuff.
Come on, you pasty-faced two-timing
Yo,
niggas.
Jupolina, thank you so much. It has been a long time. Thank you so much for the raid. Welcome on in tonight. It has been a bit of a spell. We're doing some portfolio reviews tonight. We're looking at some users' art from the chat, and we're just doing some reviews. So thank you so much. How you been? It's been a bit, guys. Welcome everybody to the channel. We are starting to make Monday nights more of a portfolio review night. Thank you so much, Jupolina. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Good to see you, by the way. I know it's been a long time. Welcome on in. Yeah, so hopefully those helped.
This guy is majorly
Very
dummy.
cool work. You guys are like improving like crazy. Like I'm seeing it. I'm absolutely seeing it. Yo, is it Airlow? Thank you for the prime. Welcome on in. Appreciate it. Those are her actual eyes. I know. Yo, thank you so much. Yeah, we do enjoy quite the pickle around here. You're told to behave. I know. We got it's getting a little crazy tonight. This is chill portfolio review night. What do you do to get reviewed? So basically, when you hang out in chat, you save up points. If you redeem 15k points on review nights like tonight, we do portfolio reviews, and we're just starting to do these up on Mondays. We used to peppermint the streams, but it was hard to stay focused a lot of the time. But yo, thank you so much. And if you guys are new to the stream, haven't been here before, my name is Dave Greco, a long time game industry, concept artist, now freelance, and really we spend a lot of our time here painting, trying to help people on their work. That's pretty much it. Yeah, straight up, absolutely. And thank you everybody for submitting your work tonight and showing your work off. I know it can be intimidating to show your work. The art that we do, everybody, it's such a personal thing. It's like we're showing like what our passion is. Like we open ourselves up and show everyone like a little peek of kind of our insides. And it can be it's scary because it can also destroy us. It can make us feel amazing. It can also completely shatter us to pieces. Yep, we do have one more mounts. Yo, Justin. Yo, Dirty Cheetah. Thank you for the sub. Welcome to the channel. I appreciate it. Yeah, so thank you everyone for coming over, and thank you for all those follows. You guys have been awesome. Yo, straight up, Dad, I was dishonest. I was super honest. Yo, Mouse, you are up. You were the last portfolio to take a look at tonight. Yeah, if you want to refund the push-ups, maybe we'll make it so that like we don't do push-ups on. Yo, this piece is awesome, man. You guys are crazy. All right. Yeah, you can do a whole portfolio or a piece that you're working on. I think this piece is cool. This is a pretty wild piece. Well, you have like a good amount of stylization happening on the piece right now. But one thing you could tackle is, wow, man, let's see here. You have some things that are happening that are pretty flat, and you can really kind of dive in. And when it comes into like, I think it looks like comfort level, right? And I think there's a consistency around a piece that you should try to carry through, right? So on Concept Art World, Dirty Cheetah, I did Concept Art World did a page on me at one point, like a long time ago. Really old work. And so like, cause it looks like you spent the time and attention to really kind of straight up night and on the face, right? And it looks like you have that going on the face. And I think when you see that in people's art and it looks like they kind of didn't want to give that attention to other things, it stands out. And so I think it's good to spend that time to make it consistent across a piece. And either that's going to come into the hands, spend the time, get those fingers in there, see how you want to render it. And the same thing with the folds in the jacket. I would start tackling like really kind of like how that wraps around his arm, everything like that. I think the weapon is cool. I would go a little thicker with the handle if you want. Ooh, good call. Yo, Stephen Preston. Yes, that is an insane tangent actually. Yeah, you have this blade curving exactly into the curve of the collar right here. And it can get very confusing. Right? I think you have something like, my camera's kind of in the way, is I would also take a look at, so you basically, because you haven't spent much time figuring out the jacket, it seems like his arm is in front of the jacket that's folding. I can't tell if it's blowing outward, or the hands in front and the jacket's going behind. Yeah, I think impressions wise, I think it's actually a cool subject. I like them. I think you should keep it black and white. I think that this as a black and white piece is pretty cool. One thing you could do too, maybe we'll throw some ideas down for you if you want. If you're kind of stuck on a piece, we can throw it on here. Like as you're working, some things I think about is like, how do we focus things in more? Does it come from like vignetting? But like what you're trying to do most of the time is create like small little variations. And so if we had, so like this part up here at least wasn't like the straight, same gray all the way around, right? And I like kind of how light he is off it, but I don't want it to be, to me, I wouldn't want the same value from top to bottom, right? It's kind of like, where do I want that focus to actually be, right? Could you push stuff back down? And then you're thinking about, where do I want light to be? Is this going to be my total focus area? Does it feel like it's kind of like lights popping off it, right? glints on here or something. You know, you could do some like really quicker things. And I think, oh yeah. And so this is when we talk about contrast, right? And bringing focus in. So say I kind of push everything up like that, right? And it gets really bright. But also like that gives us a lot of cool opportunity to go in here and see here's some really cool stuff happening, like nice subtle shapes happening in there. To really go in, hit some hard edge contrast in here on these little pockets of folds and everything. Right? On these little kind of deep areas in. Because this is the area. This is the part that's gonna make this piece sing up here, right? Yeah, I think the face is awesome. But see how like you can start getting. Yeah, we're gonna get rid of this tangent for you or something. And we're starting to get more kind of like high contrast here. You have more light kind of going from top down. I think could be more interesting. Maybe you get more of this shadow happening from like more of a top down, right? And so you can have more of that focus underneath. I mean, this, and then it's the same deal too. Guys, to figure out those kind of shapes of what's going to happen with like your neck and all these muscles down here and how that all is going to try to avoid like tube necks and all that stuff. You want to soften all this out. But yeah, you can really start kind of going in and then pushing that contrast kind of more and more. You know, that's when you can go back up into the eyes and get that going. I think it'd be cool too, if you ask me, this is what I would want to do. I'm sorry if I'm painting over this too much, but you could totally get some like really cool shapes happening in this hair. That's where I would want to take it. This is a cool piece. I can help myself. You know, and then you can find some really cool like ways to make this kind of swoosh out. You could do some really cool stuff with that. And also one thing I would think about when it comes to hair, if you don't want to make it feel like a wig, yeah, we're painting hair, we're in, is breaking that up from where your skin is hitting these chunks of hair. And so you don't want this kind of like thing happening here, but you'll have some breaks in it all, right? Even, you know, you could even do stuff like that. It's just something. Yeah, Josh, yeah, we're doing some reviews. But I think that's where you could start taking it and then like really, you know, I would dive in and really kind of figure out all these folds, really spend the time. I think it's going to make a difference. And especially this jacket, if this is going more in the background, right? And how this is going to sit. If this is more in the back. And just really figure these out. And then what you could also do, this. What you really want is like a rich head of hair. Dude, I'm losing mine at a rapid rate here. Okay, we just throw beanies on my head at this point. And one thing you could do too is like, I like the hand on this one, but one thing you could always think of too is like kind of how you could think of different ways to do the hands over here, and maybe the thumb comes out over there or something. But I think this is cool. And then usually after I kind of do you can do some straggler hairs, right? Yeah, this dude's gonna go Super Saiyan all over the place soon. And one thing you could do, and I think you do it at one point, and sometimes like if I gone too far on something, if something doesn't look right, I just strip my character nude, right? And then it can happen if you have like baggy clothes on, and just to make sure that like if I had the character here, like where would a shoulder be, just to make sure everything is lined up properly, right? Which I think you're pretty close anyway. But sometimes I would make sure, especially like maybe his elbow might be closer to there. This looks closer on this side. Right? And then once you have the proportions right, you can start draping clothing on top of it. But yeah, I would go thicker with this part. I think it is, for me, it just looks like a little thin. For as big as a blade, you need something kind of beefy. There you go. Bloop. Why, hello, Russia. Thank you so much. Sorry, it's weird with no music on or anything tonight. It's very quiet, but I hope that helps. I think you have an awesome piece, and maybe those are some ways to take your piece. I think you could have actually a really strong piece, push that contrast, and then we're having more of that kind of that focal point and that high contrast in the center part of the body, and it's gonna bring the viewer's eyes, suck it right into it. Yeah, the original, I think we had it like this. And so just a quick, I think what was it, like maybe 5-10 minutes, getting a little bit of hits on top of it. It's kind of where we can bring it, where you can push it. Like you have the basis right here.